It has no title.
Lime Time or Honeydew?
Honeydew is not bad. I would watch that movie.
I'd see Honeydew.
The entertainment world, especially the intricate nexus between Hollywood and the United Kingdom's film industry, has always been rife with gossip, tension, and speculation. But rarely does a situation erupt with such intensity that it sends shockwaves through both fan communities and professional circles. And that is precisely what happened when the seemingly unshakable bond between Outlander star Sam Heughan and his longtime co-star and friend Caitriona Balfe became the subject of headlines. Not because of their collaborative successes on screen, but because of a clash that spilled over into Sam's personal life, particularly his relationship with Dakota Johnson. The acclaimed actress, known not only for her role in the 50 Shades franchise, but also for her remarkable performances in a string of independent films, her family legacy as the daughter of Melanie Griffith and Don Johnson, and her reputation as a woman who navigates the treacherous waters of Hollywood with a mixture of grace, wit, and a quietly assertive personality that does not lend itself to public confrontations yet radiates quiet strength. From the moment Sam made his relationship with Dakota official, the public gaze sharpened, curious about how this Scottish actor, often characterized as private, grounded, and somewhat reserved compared to the flamboyant personas often seen in the entertainment world, would manage the pressure of a high-profile romance with an actress who, though not overtly scandalous, carries with her a spotlight that magnifies every gesture, every whisper, and every smile. And while at first the story was dominated by curiosity and congratulations, what truly transformed it into one of the most talked about interpersonal dramas in Hollywood was not the blossoming romance itself, but rather Caitriona Balfe's increasingly visible, and to some intrusive, role in commenting upon, questioning, and in the eyes of both Sam and Dakota, overstepping boundaries in a way that blurred the line between the concern of a loyal friend and the interference of someone unwilling to let go of influence over a man with whom she had shared years of professional intimacy. Initially, her remarks seemed harmless, even endearing, when she mentioned in an interview that Dakota might not be the perfect match for Sam because he was an introvert while Dakota carried herself differently. A comment that fans largely brushed aside as playful concern. An observation of someone who knew Sam well after countless hours spent together on set, rehearsing, promoting, and building the kind of rapport that often transcends the superficial nature of many professional partnerships. But soon the casual remarks evolved into repeated appearances where Caitriona seemed all too willing to discuss Sam's private life, giving podcasts, talk shows, and interviews tidbits about her views, subtly sowing seeds of doubt with lines like, "Sam is a great guy, but I'm not sure Dakota really knows him, and I worry that Hollywood might change him." A statement that may have sounded protective on the surface, but in reality carried undertones of condescension, casting Dakota as an outsider incapable of truly understanding or preserving Sam's authentic self. And it was precisely this constant drip of public commentary that began to gnaw at Dakota, who herself is accustomed to scrutiny yet finds the interference of insiders, especially those considered close to her partner, far more difficult to bear than the random speculations of tabloids. Dakota, usually calm and measured, finally gave her own subtle response when asked in a Vogue interview about Caitriona's involvement, choosing her words carefully yet delivering them with a firmness that left no doubt of her disapproval as she said, smiling with restraint, "I think everyone has the right to keep their distance when it comes to talking about other people's private matters. Sam and I know what we're doing, and I don't need anyone else to define our love." A line that, though phrased elegantly, was widely interpreted as a direct warning to Caitriona to cease the ongoing commentary. Yet even then the tension did not abate because Sam himself, caught between two forces. The loyalty he owed a colleague and friend who had shared with him years of on-screen chemistry and camaraderie, and the devotion he now felt for Dakota, who was not just a girlfriend but a partner, whose emotional well-being was being undermined by outside remarks, found himself unable to keep the situation from escalating, and matters came to a head during a promotional event for one of his new films when a journalist asked about his relationship with Dakota. A moment Sam attempted to treat lightly with a polite, modest response, only for Caitriona, present at the event, to interject with a pointed comment that froze the room. "I think Sam needs to think carefully. Love is not just about the red carpet. It's about lasting. I hope Dakota understands that." A remark that could easily be interpreted as a lecture. A suggestion that Dakota lacked the depth or foresight to grasp the seriousness of a long-term commitment. And in those seconds of silence that followed, with Dakota frowning slightly in the audience and Sam's forced smile evaporating from his face, the entire narrative shifted from rumors of friendly concern to open tension, sparking headlines the next day declaring that Sam's relationship with Dakota was under threat due to Caitriona's interference. It was then that Sam, who had always avoided harsh words in public and who typically embodied the archetype of the stoic professional unwilling to air grievances, decided enough was enough, calling an impromptu private press conference in Los Angeles where, with rare emotion lacing his voice, he stated bluntly, "I think Caitriona has crossed the line. I respect our long-standing friendship and professional relationship, but Dakota and I are in a relationship. No one has the right to interfere, not even her." And those words were received like a thunderclap across social media platforms, sparking furious debates among fans. Some defending Caitriona as a friend with good intentions, others criticizing her for veiled possessiveness and lack of respect, while many more argued about the fine line between public image and personal truth in an industry where every utterance becomes fodder for speculation. From a psychological perspective, the situation revealed deeper currents, for Caitriona's repeated remarks suggested not only concern but also the difficulty of disentangling one's identity from a long-term professional partnership, particularly when fans themselves often blurred the lines between fiction and reality, shipping Sam and Caitriona's on-screen romance into assumptions about their off-screen closeness. And it is possible that Caitriona, even unconsciously, struggled to redefine her role in Sam's life once he pursued a relationship that symbolically shifted him away from the bond they had shared. And yet, on the other side, Dakota's stance reflected the challenge of integrating into a partner's life when that life is already defined by years of shared history with another person, especially one adored by millions of fans who are emotionally invested in their dynamic, while Sam himself became emblematic of the man torn between two archetypal forces, the anima projection of loyalty to a trusted female counterpart, and the eros-driven devotion to the woman he loves, leaving him vulnerable to criticism no matter which choice he made. In the days and weeks following his outburst, the narrative did not quiet but instead became a firestorm of op-eds, YouTube commentaries, and social media wars, with some fans accusing Dakota of being too fragile, others accusing Caitriona of being manipulative, and a smaller but vocal group sympathizing with Sam as the one unfairly forced into a battlefield not of his choosing, and as Hollywood insiders weighed. Many pointed out that this kind of conflict is rarely just personal but also tied to publicity cycles, career alignments, and the industry's tendency to exploit interpersonal drama to keep actors in the spotlight. Yet for those directly involved, Sam, Dakota, and Caitriona, the wounds cut deeper than mere gossip, for it meant the fracturing of trust, the strain of constant public judgment, and the risk that a friendship built over a decade could collapse under the pressure of blurred boundaries and unspoken insecurities, and whether or not reconciliation is possible remains uncertain. But what is undeniable is that the moment Sam declared publicly that his old friend had crossed the line, Hollywood, and indeed the wider world of fans, realized they were not merely witnessing another fleeting headline but rather the unraveling of a human drama that touched upon loyalty, love, possessiveness, independence, and the ever-watchful gaze of a society hungry for stories where personal lives are never truly personal. And thus this saga continues to resonate as one of those cautionary tales in which private relationships are tested not only by internal dynamics but also by the relentless scrutiny and interventions of those who, intentionally or otherwise, transform affection into interference and
The cuff.
Yeah.
What is something that never fails to make you laugh?
You.
Other than me!
Your face.
My face.
What was the last photo you took?
I just took
When the rumors first broke that Caitriona Balfe had crossed a line in her involvement with Sam Heughan's relationship with Dakota Johnson, it felt at first like just another storm in the vast ocean of celebrity gossip. But soon it became clear that this was not merely idle chatter or passing speculation. It was a conflict that cut to the very core of friendships, love, loyalty, and the blurred boundary between personal lives and public personas. As the news spread, the online community became fiercely divided, with one faction passionately defending Sam and Dakota, insisting that love is the most private of human experiences and that no one, not even a former co-star and supposed confidant, has the right to interfere or pass judgment, while the other faction rushed to Caitriona's side, arguing that she had every right, even perhaps a duty, to speak up for a man she had worked alongside for over a decade. Through long days on set, exhausting promotional tours, and countless moments of professional and emotional intimacy, and who perhaps, in her eyes, might be blinded by the intensity of a new romance with a Hollywood star whose world seems so different from his own. Hashtags trended on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Hashtag Team Sam Dakota, hashtag Team Caitriona, hashtag Outlander Drama. Each side hurling both support and criticism, with loyal Outlander fans expressing deep disappointment that what they once considered the most beautiful on-screen couple, a pairing that carried the weight of their favorite series, had now become entangled in open confrontation in real life, exposing fault lines between fiction and reality that fans had for years tried to blur into seamless fantasy. And while the press eagerly stoked the flames of this division, what went largely unseen was the private conversation that took place between Sam and Caitriona in a quiet corner of Glasgow, inside a familiar cafe that had once been their refuge during filming breaks, a place without cameras, journalists, or the heavy burden of public scrutiny, where two people who had once seen each other as soulmates, though never lovers, sat across from one another and attempted to salvage what was slipping rapidly away. Sam, his voice lowered yet trembling with frustration, looked directly into Caitriona's eyes and asked the question that had weighed heavily upon his mind. Why had she done it? Why had she chosen to undermine him publicly when she must know, better than anyone, that he loved Dakota and that his choices were his alone to make? And Caitriona, biting her lip, her eyes flashing with both pain and stubbornness, responded with a raw honesty that revealed both her protectiveness and her inability to let go of control, insisting that all she had ever wanted was his happiness and that Dakota was not the one for him, reminding him that she had been by his side for years, knew his rhythms, his vulnerabilities, his needs, as though that long companionship gave her a claim upon him that even love itself could not surpass. To Sam, the words were like knives, piercing deeply into a part of him that valued loyalty yet also craved independence, and though he sighed, struggling to contain the anger boiling beneath his calm exterior, he answered firmly, drawing a line that could not be erased. "You are not my lover, you are my friend, and that line you have to respect." And after those words, the silence between them grew heavy, thick with unspoken grief, a silence that carried the weight of years of trust now threatened by suspicion and resentment. And in that silence, both recognized a distance that may never again be bridged, a loss unnamed but deeply felt, the quiet death of a bond once considered unbreakable. Meanwhile, Dakota, though herself bruised by the relentless storm of speculation and interference, understood the impossible position Sam had been thrust into and chose not to respond with defensiveness or rivalry, but with the strength of quiet support, recognizing that what Sam needed most was not a champion fighting loudly in the public arena, but a partner who would stand unwaveringly by his side. And so, in a live television interview when asked about her work and inevitably about Sam, she responded with words that not only revealed her love but also reframed the public's perception of her, saying calmly yet with conviction that Sam was the person she loved, that she trusted him to know what was right for him, that love could not be priced or measured by outsiders, and that she would always remain by his side no matter who tried to complete or divide them. And though her delivery was understated, the effect was profound, for it felt like an invisible embrace, a quiet but unshakable affirmation that gave Sam the strength to face the days ahead. And the public, accustomed to seeing Dakota as a glamorous Hollywood star, began instead to see her as a woman of resolve, someone who stood upright in the storm rather than cowering beneath it, a partner whose quiet dignity commanded respect even from skeptics. Yet the effects of the conflict were not so easily erased, for since the moment when Caitriona's words had gone too far and Sam had finally spoken out, their appearances together became rarer and increasingly strained. The easy camaraderie that once animated their joint interviews replaced with careful distance, avoiding eyes, and forced smiles that fans, ever perceptive, immediately noticed. And even though Caitriona tried in later interviews to soften her stance, to suggest regret between the lines, her carefully chosen words never quite managed to erase the sense of an unnamed loss, and Sam, determined not to deepen the wound, chose silence, refusing to fuel the fire with more statements, focusing instead upon his relationship with Dakota, who had chosen to remain steadfast despite the media's relentless attempts to portray her as an interloper or a source of division. Still, uncertainty lingered, with fans debating endlessly about the true state of affairs, questioning whether the rupture between Sam and Caitriona had irreparably affected Outlander, whether their strained chemistry might bleed into the screen, whether the pressure of fandoms. Unrealistic expectations had been the very force that transformed affection into interference, as some critics argued, pointing out that when audiences become too invested in the illusion of an on-screen romance, they project those expectations into real life, turning admiration into pressure, pressure into resentment, and resentment into an impossible burden for the actors themselves to carry. And so the saga became more than a story about three people. It became a cultural mirror, reflecting the dangers of parasocial relationships, the fine line between loyalty and control, the clash between old bonds and new love, and the way in which the human heart, when scrutinized beneath the relentless lens of celebrity culture, becomes a battlefield where even friendship cannot survive unscathed. Sam himself, in one of his final remarks on the issue, offered words that revealed both his longing for simplicity and his acceptance of the present, saying quietly, "I hope that one day everything will return to the simple as before, but right now I just want to live for the present and for the love that I have chosen." And with those words he closed a chapter, though not the book, leaving behind questions of whether reconciliation with Caitriona is possible, whether the past can ever be fully recovered, and whether the future will allow these wounds to heal, but also affirming, with dignity, that his path now belongs to him and Dakota, a path chosen not in the shadow of past friendships or public noise, but in the light of a love he has claimed as his own. And in the end, perhaps that is all anyone can do in the face of storms both public and private, to stand firm in the love they choose, to let go of what cannot be controlled, and to hope, quietly, that time itself might one day soften the edges of pain without erasing the truth of what has been lived. Hollywood was shaken when rumors spread that Caitriona Balfe had crossed the line in Sam Heughan and Dakota Johnson's relationship. Social media erupted, some insisting that love is private and Caitriona had no right to interfere, while others defended her as a friend of more than 10 years. Under pressure, Sam met Caitriona in private, telling her, "You're my friend, but Dakota is my love, and that boundary must be respected." Dakota, too, showed quiet strength in a live interview, saying, "I trust Sam